Hey guys, and welcome to episode 4 of the E46 Drift Build. Here I've got the rear subframe assembly out of the back of our drift car. What you got is the subframe diff, control arms, trailing arm and brakes. What we're going to do today is we're going to pull this apart, get it on the press and get a lot of these old rubber bushings out. And before we press in the new ones, we're going to show you what we've got and why we're putting those in. So we're going to crack on with this and hopefully get it done quick. Assembling this can be a bit of a two-man job, so I've got Brendan with me today to help me just pull it apart. Especially when it comes to pressing out these bushings, someone's going to have to stabilise while the other lines up the cups and bushing tools. So he's going to help me crack on with it, and hopefully that'll speed up the process. So get to it. Well, we've got the back end completely in pieces now. As you can see, we've got upper arms, lower arms, trailing arms, subframe. One fun thing when you always pull apart a car is you find little surprises, and this rotor was one of them. I don't know if you can see it from there, but it is absolutely rooted. Someone's run this down to metal on metal and it's decided to keep the old rotors on there. It's a massive burr. That is just horrendously rough. And I don't know if you can see it, but look at the difference in thickness. It's just absurd. So, wasn't on the build sheet, but it looks like we're putting new rotors on it. If we're going to that trouble, we'll probably be looking at new pads as well. So, we'll have to order those parts now and see when they arrive, and hopefully it doesn't impede on progress. But up next, we're going to press out these axles. When we started on this car, I was under the impression it had a medium case diff, but it in fact has a small case. So we're going to be stepping up to a medium case and therefore the bigger axles as well. So we're going to get these on the press, get them out pretty quick, and then we'll move on to all the other bushings. So let's carry on. Well, the plan is for us to reuse these hubs, but one issue with the E46s is when you press them out, you get stuck with the inner race here. So the way we're going to get that off is with the oxy torch here. So we're going to fire this up and put a little heat to them, hopefully turn them into slag, and it should come off pretty easy. That was really Alright, well that's all the bushings taken out of the back end. We've got absolutely everything, including the wheel bearings, out. So before we go any further though, we thought we'd just take a minute to show you what we're replacing it all with. This is a drift car, so we're not going for stock, we're going for a bit of an upgrade all around. Essentially, a lot of the factory bushings were rubber, such as the subframe, diff, the trailing arm, as well as the control arm connections at both ends. So what we're upgrading to is, in terms of the subframe, we're going from these bushings here to our solid aluminium. These also raise the subframe relative to the chassis to alter the roll center geometry, so there's less weight transfer in the back end, giving us more rear wheel grip. One of the other benefits of these bushings is that on the factory design, one of the front bushings is circular while the other is oval shaped. That means all the lateral loading and G-forces the car experiences is exerted on that single bushing, and that's where you see generally some of the cracks propagating forward and backwards as one bushing is supporting all that lateral loading. So the new bushings both is evenly distributed, as well as securely mounts the subframe. The benefit of going solid, other than just the roll center I mentioned earlier, is that the subframe is then fixed to the chassis. That allows the subframe to act much like a strut brace. So rather than an independent structure rolling about the prop shaft and wheel axis, as well as some of the spring loads from the control arms, it is hard mounted and lends its rigidity to the chassis between the four subframe mounts. So that one bushing upgrade there makes the car feel stiffer, more nimble, and with the unique roll center correction ours have designed into them, the car also handles and grips up better. Moving on, this is, as I said, a drift car, so what we're doing here is solid diff bushings. So the factory unit, the front two are just rubber, the rear one in fact has fluid in it, just above and below. So these are well known not to last very long at all on a drift car. If your car is a street car, where ours likely won't be for the most part, I would suggest probably sticking to rubber, but rather than stock, go for a heavy duty option, as they eliminate the fluid filled factor and just go entirely rubber. But going a bit further, we're using our solid aluminium. So this is, again, much like the subframe bushings, hard mounting the diff to the subframe. There's no chance of the diff moving or producing what is known as wheel hop, where it allows flex to build up and release forces in the driveline. So this should give us the most responsiveness possible from our inputs on the throttle. So that's the next bushing we're upgrading. Moving out to the control arms here, we're just going to swap in factory rubber. These are cheap and we figured why not. For the lower arms, however, we're just going to keep them as they are. The long-term plan for this car is that these will just simply get replaced, hopefully with an arm that has either a ball joint or a spherical bearing or a rod end in the end of it. And the last few bushings we have are in the trailing arm. So we're pressing in new wheel bearings, but they're nothing special. However, for the arm itself, the factory non-Ms have a ball joint upper and a rubber lower. We're going for ball joint up and below, so that's this point here as well as down there. Non-Ms had, as I said, rubber on the bottom. M3s, however, had ball joints top and bottom, so they're the exact same dimensions and there's no issue swapping them in. However, for the front trailing arm bushing, this is the factory rubber unit there. As you can see, it's pretty badly cracked. And in that position, it just allows a lot of unwanted flex. So essentially on acceleration, you see the car toe in, simply due to the eccentricity between here and that bushing. And this bushing also translates all the forward and aft forces, as in braking and accelerating, to the chassis. So going for our solid ball joints here, this will eliminate all change in toe, giving us great stability and eliminating all rear wheel steering, as well as prevent any forward and aft motion, reducing the inertial response to throttle and braking inputs. So the plan is, with these bushings, the car should be incredibly stiff in the back end and incredibly responsive. The only remaining rubber is just where the arms meet the subframe. Everything else is solid mounted to the subframe or chassis. So should be good, should really complement this car and what we plan to do with it. So we're going to crack on and get these pressed in.
Again, we're on the track.
Alright, well that's out with the old and in with the new. Everything in the back end of this car is now solid mounted except for the 2 bushings in the control arm. So this thing should be nice and tight and ready for anything we can throw at it. That's pretty much it for episode 4. We hope you guys didn't mind the B-roll. In the next episode, we're going to get started on putting it back together and hopefully getting it on the road very soon. So we'll see you then.
On the track.
Sit down, open the drawer, grab the impact, hand it to you, okay? You got it?
Yeah, just say something though, look up at him and acknowledge him. Go now, action.
It's locked.